Stop playing games. Get this done. This agreement today, while averting an immediate crisis, ends in, I guess it's 45 days now. It's already moving down just before Thanksgiving. Quite frankly, I'm sick and tired. I'm sick and tired of the brinksmanship.
Mr. President, are you going to be able to trust Speaker McCarthy when the next deal comes around?
I hope this experience for the Speaker has been one of a personal revelation. I'm not being facetious.
Yeah, that was President Biden yesterday getting tough, attacking House Republicans and Speaker Kevin McCarthy. Lawmakers passed a continuing resolution over the weekend to fund the government until mid-November and avert a government shutdown. Now, Congress has 45 days to pass the remaining appropriations bills on the docket. House Ways and Means Committee Chairman Jason Smith joined me yesterday on Sunday Morning Futures to walk us through what comes next.
First, we've already passed more than 70% of all the funding out of the House of Representatives by just single subject bills. We still have additional work to do of the other 30%, and that's in fact what we're going to do over the next couple weeks in Congress. In fact, we were supposed to be gone this coming week, and Speaker McCarthy said, we're absolutely not leaving. We're going to finish the job.
And joining us right now is Wisconsin Congressman Bryan Steil. He's a member of the House Financial Services Committee, as well as the chairman of the House Administration Committee. Congressman, good to see you. Thanks very much for being here. Must have been quite a weekend.
It was a long weekend. Ultimately, we were successful in keeping the government open, but that means this week we need to get on with the work of the American people and get these spending deals completed. As noted from Jason Smith there, we've done 70% of the spending in the House, actually controlling spending, funding our priorities, such as border security. Now is the work to get these all the way done so we don't end up in the same position we were in this weekend 45 days from now.
Well, there was actually no border security measures in the continuing resolution, though, right? I know you've talked a lot about the border, but what do you mean you've secured the border?
Oh, we have not secured the border at all. The funding bill that went through in the United States House of Representatives as it relates to Homeland Security has strong border security funding in it. It's the reason that we have to move forward with that, push the Senate to come to the table and pass a Homeland Security bill that is serious, substantive, and addresses the U.S.-Mexico border.
Yeah, that's a great point. Everybody wants to see that. But do you think you're going to be able to get these numbers down in terms of these single subject bills? Do you believe if you're looking at them individually and voting on them individually, you'll be able to cut spending in some of them?
Well, I think we've shown already in the House of Representatives as it relates to 70% of discretionary spending, the funds that we appropriate every year, we've actually shown that we can control spending inside the limits of what we negotiated within the debt ceiling agreement. And so the key here is to buy us a small amount of time, force the Senate to actually get their job done. The Senate refuses to move forward. And if we're capable of that and we're unified, we're in the strongest position to force the hand of the Democratic-controlled Senate and the Democratic president.
I want to get your take on this whole fight and drama around Congressman Matt Gaetz. He's threatening to bring a motion to vacate to Speaker McCarthy. What are you expecting?
I'm hopeful at the end of the day we're able to move this aside. This is an unproductive exercise that pulls us away from our core responsibility of making sure we're moving through these spending bills, that we're forcing the Biden administration to come to the table to secure the U.S.-Mexico border and put in place policies like stay in Mexico. And so this is going to be a big distraction. And again, in a period of time of divided government, we are in our best negotiating position as Republicans in the House of Representatives to try to pull the cards out to win the game against Democrats in the Senate and the Democratic president if we're united in the House. When we're fractured in the House, that gives strength to President Biden.
Well, I mean, over the weekend, we really saw, you know, the lengths that your colleagues will go to obstruct. New York Congressman Jamal Bowman is apologizing this morning after being caught on camera pulling a fire alarm before the House could vote on the short-term government funding bill. Here's New York Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez actually defending Bowman. Watch this.
They are protecting someone who has lied to the American people, lied to the United States House of Representatives, lied to congressional investigators, but they're filing a motion to expel a member who, in a moment of panic, was trying to escape a vestibule. Give me a break.
I'm not sure what she's talking about, defending liars. I know that the House Administration Committee is investigating Bowman now. That's your committee. What can you tell us? Will he be held accountable for efforting obstruction of the official proceedings?
I'm chairman of that committee. No one is above the law. The Democrats engaged in delay tactics on the House floor, calling for a motion to adjourn. A few minutes later, Representative Bowman would go and pull the fire alarm. He claims that it was a mistake, thinking that it would open the door. That doesn't really pass the sniff test. If you work in the House of Representatives, it's pretty clear when there's a giant red sign on the door that the door is locked. It's pretty hard to believe that somebody would think that pulling the fire alarm would be a successful operation to open the door, rather than simply going through a door that's already open and available. The video is going to tell a lot. Did he actually pull that fire alarm, and then did he go and announce that he did make a mistake? Or did he run as if he thought he might get away from it? I think the video at the end of the day that the United States Capitol Police are currently reviewing will tell us a lot.
Yeah, I mean, he says it was not me trying to delay any vote. But the thinking was that he wanted to delay the vote so that the Senate bill could come through, which, of course, included funding for Ukraine and a lot of other spending.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The Democrats writ large were engaged in delay tactics to try to allow the U.S. Senate to roll the House. We were trying to move through our bill first. It was a little bit of a game of brinksmanship. Democrats had called a motion to adjourn. They were doing parliamentary procedure tactics, legal, although frustrating, on the House floor. Pulling the fire alarm is a next level kind of operation. That could be if it was truly to delay, which it kind of appears that it might be. That's an illegal action, and I think people should be held accountable for their actions.
And what does that mean for Bowman?
Well, ultimately, the United States Capitol Police are conducting their investigation right now, so they may or may not make a charging decision. Following that, House Ethics would be able to review that and make a decision.
It's just incredible to me that after that, hit job, you've got President Biden actually attacking House Republicans. He's saying he's sick and tired of the brinksmanship. I mean, now he's also attacking the House's impeachment inquiry, claiming that it's only happening because McCarthy is afraid that he would lose the speakership. Watch this.
The Speaker's made a terrible bargain. In order to keep the speakership, he's willing to do things that I think he knows are inconsistent with constitutional processes.
No mention of the 20 shell companies that Joe Biden set up while vice president, or the tens of millions of dollars that House Republicans told us the Biden family has taken in, or the witness testimony alleging bribery of this president.
Yeah, the investigation of President Biden is completely justified when there's this much smoke. When we look at the shell companies, the financial transfers, the involvement in shady business dealings of the broader family, I think it's only appropriate for the American people to know, in any way did the president alter his behavior, in particular as it relates to China or to Russia, in an official action because of these financial transactions. You're not going to find that unless you ask the tough questions, and that's what House Republicans are doing. I think it's important that we uncover and disclose to the American people exactly what happened, and then people need to be held accountable if the evidence shows it.
All right, Congressman, we'll be watching your work. Thanks very much for being here this morning.
Thank you.